Microsoft is holding back games by supporting the Xbox One generation 2 years into the Series X generation. Let's talk about that. This is a statement that has been thrown around in a number of articles and a number of Twitter interactions that I've come across. So is it true? Well, there's a lot of angles to this, and here are my thoughts. So firstly, from the consumer's point of view, what do you think is the better option? Definitely the Microsoft approach seems to be user-friendly, mostly because not everyone is going to manage to get a Series X console at launch. With Sony, they definitely want to push everybody onto the PS5 ecosystem as fast as possible, and that might not be seen as a friendly approach to people who won't be able to afford the PlayStation system, especially if we consider what has been happening around the world this year. But of course, when we come to talking about the games themselves, are we really going to hold back gaming? Is it possible that by supporting the Xbox One, that the Series X will be holding back how good future games the Xbox Game Studios would look like and how well they would feel? Are they able to tone back the design, the graphics, simply because of holding support for the Xbox One generation? So, firstly, what we cannot deny is that by having Microsoft support the Xbox One generation, there is definitely going to be more optimization that has to happen, because in essence you'll be supporting the Xbox Series X, you will be supporting the Xbox One X, you'll be supporting the Xbox One itself, and of course if the Series S exists, even the Xbox Series S will also have to be supported. So all the teams at Xbox Game Studios will potentially have to support multiple platforms at once, and this is perhaps the drawback that I have with this approach. I don't think it's much of a big deal, mostly because even with this generation that we've had the PS4 Pro and the normal PS4, we've had the Xbox One and the Xbox One X, and games were coming out on both systems without a problem. The Xbox One X games look brilliant, the PS4 Pro games look brilliant, the standard one and the standard PlayStation 4 were also brilliant in their own right, based off of what they could achieve. So I do think the studios are familiar with working with multiple consoles. Secondly, over on the PC spectrum, Microsoft's games do release for PC. They release on Steam, Sea of Thieves, the Master Chief Collection, State of Decay, and so on are all on PC. And on PC, the ecosystem is so vast, it's wide. There's lots of graphics cards, lots of CPUs, memory configurations, and so on. And if a game can be created to work on PC, you know, some PCs are potatoes, literally, right? Just a cheap PC out there can run at the very most basic version, you know, at 480p for all I care. They can run some games at very low settings, at frame rates that are very low. So that's possible. Games do scale. We can see that they can scale on PC, from the cheap laptops to all the advanced main gear and so on and so forth. We have expensive PCs, cheap PCs, all having games work, and the games will scale depending on what hardware you have. In fact, on PC, most titles, the first thing that will happen when you just install them and start is that they'll run a test so that they see what hardware you have, and then will configure the settings appropriately based off of that hardware, right? So that's how it works on PC. So I don't see how that is not possible on a console. So holding back gaming, I do not think so. Within the 2 years, it's definitely going to be harder for Microsoft to support the other consoles. They'll definitely have to allocate more time. The developers will definitely have to spend additional effort in trying to make the lower versions to work well, right? To optimize for them. The Sony PlayStation 5 guys won't have to worry about that. Sony will just have to focus on PlayStation 5, just one device, and so those developers who don't have will only have to optimize for a single device, and so it will be much easier for them. Microsoft, on the other hand, will have it a little bit harder, mostly because they'll support multiple devices, because they'll have to optimize for each and every one of those devices, and that is the only downside that I see towards this. I don't think gaming itself is going to be held back. The vision of the games will not be held back because of this. Whether you think about the RAM, the SSD, the CPU, and the GPU, games have been able to run on the Xbox One, the Xbox One X together, and we didn't really have a problem there. So I don't see a problem going into the future. Now, of course, there's going to be a point in which this is not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be, if we weigh in how much effort it will take to support an Xbox One system versus the returns, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns, probably around 2022, 2023, when most of the people have migrated to Xbox Series X. There would be no need of pushing in a lot of effort, a lot of development time into a small user base, and by that time the developers would have been very, very used to the Xbox Series X hardware. They would be very accustomed to working with it, and they would definitely be able to pull the most from it. But any game in any generation takes multiple years to develop. So if you think about the games that are starting to be developed this year, they won't be done next year, right? Unless they are small games. But if we're talking AAA games take years, right? How long did Red Dead 2 take? How long did Grand Theft take? Grand Theft Auto 5, right? They take multiple years. Assassin's Creed alone takes 3 years to develop. They have 3 studios that work in a cycle. Call of Duty also has a 3-year cycle. So if they start developing in 2020, the game gets released in 2023, right? And so all the games that are releasing this year, the games that will be releasing next year, and even the other year in 2022, if they're AAA, you can bet that development began at least 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago for smaller teams, but the huge teams like EA, Ubisoft, the Xbox Game Studios, the big ones, and PlayStation Studios, the larger teams, all of them would have started developing their titles years ago. Halo 5, for example, took 5 years to develop. Back in 2015 is when they started developing Halo Infinite. So because of that, they had no Xbox Series X back in 2015, no development kit to work with back then. So what would you tell me they were working with, right? So they were working with the Xbox One. So now that there's a Series X, they'll make a prettier, improved version of it on Series X. But all this time they've been working with the Xbox One development kit. And that's the point here, that most large games take multiple years to develop, and back 2 years ago there was no Series X development kit. There was no PS5 development kit. There was only an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro development kit, and that's what these teams were working with as they were developing these games. So because of that, we are still going to be in a transition period. This is why the games that will be coming out in this period are going to be multi-platform, right? Ubisoft had no certainty that the Series X would come out this year. So whatever Assassin's Creed they started developing 3 years ago was going to release for whatever console was going to be around this time, right? So this is why Assassin's Creed Valhalla will definitely work with Xbox One and also on Series X. That's just how development works. Then, other than that, when it comes to monetization, right? for Microsoft, I think it's a big deal that they do support the Xbox One because of Game Pass. They need as many people in Game Pass as possible. So if they let go of the Xbox One and start from scratch building the user base of Game Pass on console from the Series X alone, it's going to take a whole lot of years till they get to the number of subscribers where they are right now. So that's definitely something they are probably thinking of as well. With Sony, they don't really pay much attention to PS Now. At least they don't put in as much effort as Microsoft does towards pushing PlayStation Now. So they don't mind starting over, right? There are around 1 million or so subscribers, whereas Microsoft has about 10 million or so Game Pass subscribers. So it doesn't make sense for Microsoft to just let go of those 10 million console subscribers and start from scratch on Series X. It doesn't, right? Then when it comes to making money as well, when an Xbox exclusive comes out, Microsoft definitely will have to sell to more people. 50 million Xbox consoles plus the Series X consoles, right? 50 million Xbox One owners plus the Series X console owners. That's going to be a larger market base, of course, including the PC. With PlayStation, they'll have to sell their exclusive games to the few million people who will own a PlayStation 5 this year. And we've seen with the Bloomberg article that approximately only 7 million PlayStation 5s will be available at launch. So it will take quite a while before they have a substantial user base such that PS5 exclusives are able to sell to a high degree, right? Where they have quite a lot of users that are able to buy it the moment it launches. So the first few exclusives that will launch in this first year, starting 2020 into 2021, the market bases will be different, and Microsoft is definitely going to earn more from Game Pass and even console sales than Sony will. But Sony's strategy is definitely to have an edge in PS5 sales over the Series X. So they want as many people as possible on the PlayStation 5, right? And I do understand that by deciding to support the PS5, their developers will have no time optimizing for PS4, so they will focus just working with PS5 hardware. It could reduce the amount of time it takes to do certain things. As a developer, I do understand that, and also it's going to make them familiar with working with the PS5 RDNA2 features as quickly as possible, right? They will be much more familiar in a shorter amount of time. All this is subject to the teams themselves. We don't know exactly how they do work, but judging by single developers, if you are working on a game alone, working with one console would be the easier option. So is Microsoft's approach the better one? You decide. You leave a comment below and tell me what you think. But what we can agree is this, that for the consumers, especially the ones that get the consoles this year, if you get a PS4 and an Xbox One, in this period before the Series X and PS5 come out, you will definitely want support for at least 2 years, right? Then we can also agree that it's definitely going to be harder for Microsoft to support games all the way up to the Xbox One generation. We can agree that it's definitely a harder thing to support multiple consoles. But other than that, we can also agree that Sony will have fewer users to sell PS exclusives compared to Microsoft, who will be selling to the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One owners, whereas Sony will only be selling to the PS5 owners. We can also deduce from this conversation that Microsoft will definitely be considering Game Pass users where they have larger numbers on console than on PC. So all of these things are different talking points, and depending on who you are if you're a PS5 day one owner, if you're an Xbox Series X day one owner, if you are a customer who's just bought an Xbox One in this COVID period, if you've just bought your PS4 this month, depending on who you are, you will definitely have a different opinion about whether supporting older consoles is a good thing or not. But in terms of games, yeah, we can definitely see and tell that it's harder for Microsoft to do that, but it's not impossible, because it does happen in the PC space. In the PC space, supporting multiple devices, different hardware configurations is the norm. It's harder, but it's what happens on PC. So those are my thoughts. Like the video, subscribe, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Sweshi out.